Hello guitar friends. Today I want to talk to you about something that comes to us all and touches us very deeply. It's the age-old question. I've tuned my guitar, so why isn't it, in tune? It's all well and good having an amazing guitar and a killer amp and 100 pedals, and you might be an absolute demon guitar player, but if you're not in tune, you're gonna sound like garbage. But all is not lost. Here's me with some handy tips.
Thanks, me, and thanks YouTube for tuning in. Before we go on, please don't forget to subscribe and drop me a like at the end of the video. So just a quick recap for those who don't know. A guitar in what's known as standard tuning is tuned from the lowest string to the highest string, E, A, D, G, B, E. A quick and basic way to tune your guitar is to get a tuning fork, or maybe a piano, or one of those tuner apps that can give you one of those pitches, and then tune the correct string to that pitch, and then tune the other strings to that string. The string intervals are in fourths.
Except for the B string, that's a major third.
Okay, that's true, but we're not here to talk theory. What that means is if your low E string is in tune, then the 5th fret on that string will be the same pitch as the next string, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Play that note. And the next open string is the same note. You do this for E to A, for A to D, for D to G. The G to B, you go down to the 4th fret. And then for the B to the E, you go back up to the 5th fret. Most of you know that already, but it's important to include the people who are just starting out. So some people might say, I've got a guitar tuner, why not just use that? And the answer is because one of the most important things about being a musician is to use your ears. Sure, you can look at the screen and you can tune the machine head until the little dot is right in the middle, and to be honest, I do that too when I'm in a hurry. But don't forget to listen. So your guitar's in tune now, right? Well, it's close, but it's not quite there yet. So why is that? Well, one of the reasons why your guitar might not be in tune, despite the fact that the strings are in tune with each other, is that the strings haven't been intonated correctly. Briefly, intonation is dictated by the length of the string. You intonate a string by changing the position of the saddle, which is the bit of the bridge that the string sits on. The saddle should be adjustable towards the neck and away from the neck, and a lot of the time bridges are adjustable in height as well. Bear that in mind when you're adjusting your intonation, because if you raise or lower the saddle, it changes the length of the string. To achieve correct intonation, you need to first play a harmonic over the 12th fret of the string. That's when you put your finger on the string without fretting a note. Then you tune that string until the harmonic is in tune. Next, you fret a note at the 12th fret. Now you may find that note is either higher, which is known as sharp, or lower, which is known as flat. If it's sharp, it means that the length of the string between the 12th fret and the saddle is too short. That means you need to move the saddle away from the neck. If it's flat, it means that the length of the string between the 12th fret and the saddle is too long, in which case you need to move the saddle towards the neck. Play the harmonic again and retune it. Then play the 12th note fretted and check if it's sharp or flat again. Keep going back and forth between the harmonic and the fretted note and adjust the bridge until you manage to get them perfectly in tune with each other. Once they are, that means your string is perfectly intonated, in theory. In practice, you may find that your nut, which is this bit here, is cut a little bit too high. An easy way to check this is to play the open string, make sure that's in tune, and then play the 1st fret. If that note is a little bit sharp, that means your nut has been cut too high. Now, cutting a nut is not a particularly complicated job, but it is very easy to get wrong. If you don't know what you're doing, I highly suggest you take this to a qualified luthier. Another thing to be aware of is that if you have big tall frets like I do on this guitar and you happen to be heavy-handed, it's very easy to fret the note too hard, which makes the note go sharp. If you're a heavy-handed player, you could switch to a higher gauge string or you could practice playing with a lighter touch. Okay, so you've resolved all these things. Your guitar is now in tune, right? Except it still isn't. It's a lot closer, but look, real talk for a second. A guitar is never going to be 100% in tune. Good intonation improves it, but it won't fully fix it. Why is that?
The thing about guitars is that they're made out of these things. I mean trees, not dead people. Guitars aren't just made out of wood, obviously. They're also made out of metal and plastic, which are far more stable materials. Or at least they would be if they weren't also installed into bits of wood.
And this is reason number one why your guitar won't ever be fully in tune. Guitars are not precision engineered things, and they're not made from high-tech materials. They're made out of stuff we found in the woods and stuff we dug out of the ground. Literally the most technologically advanced thing on any guitar is the bits that are made out of plastic. Everything else is 100-year-old technology. But that's good news. That's why we love them. It's why they look and sound and feel the way they do, and why they're all unique and individual, even the ones that have been made on CNC machines. So the best you can do once you've done everything I've just explained is to average it all out. A good way is to go up and down the neck, playing different chord shapes and making small adjustments until you're happy with it. My little routine is that once I have the open strings pretty much right, I play a second possession B5 chord with the octave and all the other strings open. Then I play a 7th fret E5 in the same shape. I also check that the harmonic on the 5th fret matches the harmonic on the 7th fret on the next string. If you're out, you'll hear ever so slight chorusing. I'll show you. You hear that wobbling? That meant that they weren't in tune with each other. Again, it's really important to use your ears. So once you've done all of that, it should be good enough for rock and roll. But then, just one song later... What the hell?
There are 4 things that determine how well your guitar stays in tune. The first is temperature, the second is humidity, the third is how well you keep it maintained, and the fourth is how good of a guitar it is to begin with.
So let's look at numbers 1 and 2. It's not like there's an ideal temperature or humidity that a guitar wants to live at. What guitars look for is stability. It's the changes between the different temperatures and humidities that cause your guitar to move around. Now, I'm lucky to live in a temperate climate where there's relatively little change between how hot and cold or how wet and dry it gets. So I don't need to set up my guitars 6 times a year like people who live in the American Deep South, for example. However, if my guitar's been in a cold car for a few hours and I bring it into a warm rehearsal space, it's still going to take a little while for it to adjust to its new temperature. And during that time, it's going to move around. Just a little bit, but enough to knock your guitar right out of tune. So ideally, if you're bringing your guitar into a new environment, you need to give it a little bit of time to acclimatize. But what else can you do about it? This is number 3, how well you maintain your guitar. The first thing is to give your guitar the very best chance of staying in tune. We'll start with the strings. Are they new? I've just put these on. They're a set of Ernie Ball regular slinkies, nothing fancy but very reliable, and they've always worked for me. Now, new strings need a little bit of time to adjust to being under tension. You can accelerate this by stretching them out. You'd be surprised the number of guitarists who wonder why the guitar isn't staying in tune, and then it turns out they haven't stretched their strings. When you put new strings on, you have to give the string a good stretch. Don't be shy about it. All along the length of the string. All the way down and all the way back up again. Then retune it. Do it again. Did you hear how far out of tune that went? Do it again and keep retuning. You literally do this until the string stops going out of tune when you pull on it. That means the string is stabilized. If the string keeps going out of tune even after you've pulled on it loads, then check the winding on the tuners. Everyone has their own way of stringing guitars, but the principle's always the same. On a standard tuner, the string should be held in place by its own tension, and there should be enough slack to go around the post. But not too many times, or that's going to hurt your tuning stability. You want 1 or 2, maybe 3 turns at most, and you don't want them all overlapping. You want them in neat rows or they're going to get bound up. Just a little tip, unless you're the guitar tech for the Eagles, I would advise against those little string winder hand crank things you can get. I don't see the appeal of potentially damaging a fragile machine head just to save the 15 seconds it's going to take you to wind this thing in by hand. You should take your time when you're restringing your guitar. It's really worth doing a good job. The next thing is to keep the nut and the bridge well lubricated because the string needs to be able to move freely over both of them. You can get a product for it like Nut Sauce, but I just tend to use a pencil because graphite is an excellent lubricant. For guitars, not for the other thing. You also need to keep your strings nice and clean. Now I'm lucky that I have dry hands so my strings will last for weeks before they go off. But I know guys who sweat some kind of greasy acid that if they're not careful makes their fretboard look like something that's been dragged off the ocean floor. Here's quite an affordable product called Fast Fret, where you get this little cleaning stick right here, and it also comes with this little rag. If you give the guitar a quick once over when you're done playing, it'll extend the life of your strings and it's totally worth doing. Finally, number 4, how good your guitar is to begin with. There is a direct correlation between the quality of a guitar and its tuning stability. The good news is that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an expensive guitar, as most affordable guitars these days are built to a pretty good level of quality. But, for example, if your budget guitar has a budget tremolo unit on it, there's a good chance that's what's putting it out of tune. This guitar has a fixed bridge, but it also has this cool feature where the individual saddles bolt down with Allen screws once they're properly intonated. You can see the neck here is 5 laminated pieces, which makes it a lot more stable than just one piece. On top of that, I fitted these aftermarket locking tuners, which means that if you look on the headstock here, you'll see there's no slack here at all where the string goes through the post. There's really very little I could do to this guitar to make it stay in tune any better than it already does. Anyway, I hope this has all been helpful. Bear in mind, these are only my tips and tricks for keeping your guitar in tune. Please comment below if you have your own routine and do share your own tips. I'm sure lots of you have all kinds of good stuff that I haven't mentioned that we could all benefit from. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and drop a like on this video if you've enjoyed it or if you found it useful. I'll see you next time.